In this video, how I built this retaining wall using pressure treated lumber. Stick around. So I recently built this concrete patio, and I had to bring in some fill when I did this, and the result was a very steep grade that was just not going to hold up. So I needed to build a wall. So the very first thing I did is I designed the wall to scale using 3D software. And I think this is a good way to go because this allowed me to know exactly what I needed material-wise and just really help visualize the whole thing. I really think if you're designing projects, these 3D softwares are the way to go, or at least a very good sketch. So now I knew exactly what materials I needed. I went ahead and ordered them and I had them delivered. And since this was something that I was gonna do primarily independently, I didn't want to leave the lumber just sitting in the driveway, so I stored it in the garage out of the weather. And then I thought I could manhandle the pilings. And then I realized I was not 18 anymore, and every piling from there was a bit more challenging. So just getting ready to start to build the wall. Now that I know my design, the first thing what I want to do is dig a ditch the length of the wall this way. Then I'll set my pilings, then I'll come in and I'll do the framing, and then I will drop the vertical boards. So now it was time to set the pilings, and what we did in this case is we brought in an excavator, thanks to Dave's Point Work Boats, and we used a vibrating attachment to vibrate the 10-foot pilings down into the ground. And this was a good way to do it because it made these poles nice and stiff, and we can put them exactly where we wanted them. So now that the pilings are set and where I want them, the next step is for me to do the horizontal banding, and that's essentially like the framing for the wall. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to use 16-foot 2x8s. I'm going to double them up. Now my first step is I'm going to do the top horizontal band, and that's going to be the exact height of our fence. And I found that height by going from one corner where the established height was and then running the line all the way down to the last piling, and I found out that height on the grade I wanted it, and then I ran a line between those 2 points, and then I made marks along the pole everywhere that line matched up, and then I simply need to match my boards to those lines, and that top horizontal band should be just right. Now I'm doubling up 2x8s and I'm running 16-foot boards. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to run the first row 2x8s by 16s, and then I'm going to offset the second one on top of that. And essentially what that's going to do is break up our joint. So we'll have one seam and one board that crosses over that seam per piling. Now that the banding's in place, I'm getting ready to go ahead and put up the vertical boards. Now before I do that, I figured since I've got the digger here still, I was going to go ahead and put in a 4-inch drain pipe. So I dug a little trench here, and I'm going to stick it up in here, and then because what I may do is add a channel drain off the patio down the road. Now to install the vertical boards, I simply just screw them to this horizontal banding, and I use about 4 screws per band. And the way this wall is, it tapers its way up, so I have to kind of cut the boards to a rough length to fit all the way in here. But I'm just going to cut them, put them in, and do it all the way to the end, and then we will have the basic of our wall in place. Whew, this is exhausting. I'm going to come out and say it's probably not the best candidate for a do-it-yourself project building a retaining wall like this, but I want to show it can be done. It's just kicking my butt. I'm gonna put in piece by piece, and I gotta jump around getting equipment and materials all day long. Problem is I leave something in the garage when I'm down in the ditch, and I gotta go in and out, and it just takes a lot of time. That being said, we are putting in the vertical boards now. What I wanna do as I'm doing this is I wanna secure the banding boards to the pilings a little bit better. I'm gonna use some bigger hardware to do this. So as I go, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna drill some holes through the pilings, through the bands, and through the plank boards. I'm going to put in 1/2-inch threaded rod. I'm going to tighten that down with nuts and washers, and I'm going to do that as I go just because it's going to be easier to access those bolts and tighten them and what have you while I have the space. So now that the wall is up, the next step is I'm going to apply this filter fabric or this membrane material. And essentially the idea behind this is this should allow water to seep through, but at the same time hold back the soil. And when you build a wood wall like this, you get a lot of seams between the boards obviously, and then sometimes that wood could shrink and make the seams even bigger, so there's a chance the sand could sneak out. On the other hand, you don't want things to clog because you want it to drain well. So this is kind of a compromise situation where it should hold the sand back, but allow the moisture to wick through. So I'm putting this up now, and all I'm doing is using some stainless steel roofing nails and tacking it up in 8-foot sections as I go, and easy peasy. Okay, so the last thing I need to do before I backfill is to tie back some of these pilings. And so I'm using what some people call deadman, or basically a tie back, and in this case I'm using a piling in the ground and I'm tying it back with this threaded rod. So I basically drilled through this piling, through the piling in the ground, and have it attached with this threaded rod, and then just snug it down. Now these are the deadmen I built on the other side of the wall, just to show you another option that could work as well. Now before backfilling, a consideration should be drainage. Now on a lot of walls, what you'll see is people backfill with kind of a drainage aggregate, a type of rock. For the type of dirt we have here in this wood construction, it's probably not absolutely necessary. But what I am doing is, you can see this pipe behind me here, I am putting that in because I'm probably going to run some channel drains off my patio. Most of the water that this wall would get would be from the water coming from the house. If I divert that water with channel drains, we should be good. The other area shouldn't accumulate too much water, and it should percolate out of the wall because of the type of soil we're using and the way the wall's built. So we should be good to go, ready to backfill. And after backfilling, I hand graded the rest of the wall area with a rake, and then here's kind of what it looked like. And note here, there's about a 6-inch drop from the concrete patio to the wall top here. We kind of just lightly leveled that dirt out so the water would drain over. And the last step was to install some irrigation. I'm going to come and put sod back over this wall, so I wanted to run some irrigation to make sure that sod stays nice and healthy. So I just kind of dug a ditch and installed my sprinkler system. Then I did a final grade with a big rake, and then it was time to install the sod. Now the hope is that the sod will just take on it and grow well over the years. And so there it is, a nice functional wall made out of pressure treated wood. If you found this video helpful, please consider subscribing, give the video a thumbs up. Thanks for watching. I'm Joe Kistel.